Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. The subject of the discourse today is Rathavinita Sutta. This discourse was delivered by Bhagavan Buddha in Rajagaha. While he was staying in Rajagaha, there the Buddha gave this discourse. It's one of the most important suttas, in fact, in the Majjhima Nikaya. It's Majjhima Nikaya number 24 is one of the basic suttas dilating on the nature of the spiritual purification and spiritual transformation that comes about, the process of spiritual development. So it deals with that extensively. It's known as Satta Visuddhi, the 7 stages of purification, spiritual purification, leading to enlightenment, leading to spiritual transformation and enlightenment. And this sutta also deals with the nature of Nibbana, that is, nature of when a person has succeeded in attaining enlightenment and thereby brought about complete, a total purification of the mind, of wisdom, of spiritual transformation. Then, what happens once the enlightenment is attained and the spiritual transformation is brought about? What exactly happens, you see, as an experience of Nibbana? Nibbana is twofold. One, by way of the Nibbana of a living, enlightened being. Let us say, the various stages of supramundane attainments leading to the state of the Arahat, of the perfect one. Now once a person becomes an Arahat, he is totally liberated from the bondage of worldly existence. He is freed from this wheel of involvement in karma and rebirth. And an Arahat, once the Arahat passes away into final parinibbana, or the final state of liberation, then he is no more reborn. He is totally freed from this process of samsaric existence, of being born, then die, then being reborn, and then again get involved in the karmic process. So karma and rebirth, this wheel of karma and rebirth, from that the Arahat is totally liberated. So as an having achieved this highest state of enlightenment, he is totally liberated from samsaric bondage and therewith all the sufferings of samsaric bondage. Now, this sutta deals with these two things. One is the stages of purification, spiritual purification that comes about step by step, not suddenly, and with assiduous practice and total commitment to spiritual life. Once one begins that kind of spiritual life, and then by stages, in 7 distinct stages, how the spiritual purification occurs, that is very clearly and very objectively stated, so that anybody can understand. how progress, spiritual progress takes place in the form of the purifications. And at the end of purification, when a person achieves the final goal of enlightenment, Nibbana, you see, the two aspects are twofold. One is when the person is already a liberated being, a perfect one, say an Arahat, what happens to him? He is liberated, all right, but he is still living. So as a living person, he is subject to the process of living. He has to eat, he has to drink, he has to answer calls of nature, he has to attain to the well-being of the people. He lives a normal life, completely normal life, and while living a normal life, how he enjoys the state of Nibbana, state of spiritual freedom, spiritual liberation, that is one state. It's called the Sa Upadhi Sesa Nibbana Dhatu. Now, while living, he is enlightened, though he is subjected to the process, you see, living in samsara, still in the worldly existence. Yet he enjoys, you see, state of freedom, liberation. He is an enlightened person and he enlightens the world. And the way he lives becomes the model for all those who are unenlightened. So, here you have got three distinct topics of very profound importance indeed for a person who is seeking to be enlightened or who is a spiritual seeker. Again, to repeat, number one, the stages of purification. That is the path by which one evolves, one develops spiritually, leading to spiritual transformation and enlightenment, freeing the mind totally from the bondages of the fetters and living entirely for the good of the world. While going through the process of ordinary life, the Arahat also has got you see, maybe an Arahat may be sick, an Arahat may, you see, he needs all the things that an ordinary person needs, food, a place to live, and all that sort of stuff. So, an Arahat, while living a very ordinary, normal life, he still is liberated and helps in the liberation of others. So this is through the 7 stages of development, he achieves this. The second aspect of Nibbana is the Anupadisesa Nibbana Dhatu. That is when the Arahat passes away. After the liberated one, the enlightened one passes away, what happens? That is the other aspect, Anupadisesa. Now in this, the Arahat, when he passes away, his life is characterized by certain qualities. And the first thing is that he is totally freed from any kind of clinging whatsoever. He passes away without clinging to anything of the world. He just passes away. The description in Rathavinita Sutta is that just as in a lamp, when the oil is finished, the flame also gets burnt off. So his parinibbana is something like that. When the karmic, all the accumulated karmic force, potency is still within himself, he lives. And after the karmic process is over, that means he is living as his body and mind, you see, the normal life. When that is over, his longevity is over, then he passes into the final parinibbana, absolutely without clinging to anything in the world. The flame does not cling to the oil. Flame does not cling to the lamp in any manner. The oil is finished and the flame is gone. This is exactly what happens with the Arhat. So, now these are the two aspects of Nibbana, the 7 stages of purification leading to Nibbana, and the model life that he lives, the enlightened person. Now, for instance, one example I will give you. In the very first stage of enlightenment, when a person enters into the stream of Nibbana, which is called Sotapatti, entering into the stream leading to Nibbana, irreversibly. He can never, you see, once he enters into this state, his mind is totally transformed. He is a different person altogether. So he cannot fall back again under any circumstances. Within 7 days, 7 lives time, he becomes a fully enlightened Arhat. Now even at this stage, at the very first initial stage of enlightenment, the Sotapanna is totally freed from a certain type of actions and behavior. For instance, he cannot, under any circumstances, violate the Panchashila, the 5 Shilas. And a Sotapanna can never kill. But he only promotes the well-being and happiness of all living creatures. He lives a totally non-violent life of, universal love, compassion and so on. So he cannot violate the first principle, the precept of killing, but he, on the other hand, saves life in every possible manner that he can. Secondly, he cannot, under any circumstances, violate the precept of stealing, taking things that does not belong to you, misappropriating others' things, stealing others' things, or corruption, plain and simple, getting involved in an act of corruption. Take things that doesn't belong to you. You see. So he is a very generous person. He is a giver and never a taker. Then the third principle he cannot under any circumstances violate is that he can never commit an act of sexual misconduct. A Sotapanna can still be a householder. He can live a very noble, clean, pure household life. And his mode of living is no more based on sensual pleasures or anything of that sort. So a Sotapanna can never, under any circumstances, violate this moral principle of, sexual misconduct under any circumstance. Number 4, a Sotapanna can never tell lies. It is impossible that a Sotapanna, having entered into the stream of Nibbana, to the ultimate truth, that he will violate the principle of truth by being untruthful. He can never violate that. Nor again the Sotapanna, can under any circumstances indulge in any kind of intoxicating, taking drinks, intoxicating drinks and be inebriated and all that sort of thing. No. He has complete control over his mind and he never loses his mind by indulging in intoxicants and so on. So these 5 principles which he cannot violate, but he only promotes the opposite virtues of each of these principles. Now that becomes the model for a seeker of truth, for a seeker of enlightenment in Buddhism. So every Buddhist throughout the world and throughout any other, planes of existence, every Buddhist is supposed to follow the model provided by the Sotapanna in order to achieve enlightenment. If you are not thinking of enlightenment, if you are not thinking of spiritual freedom, if you want to keep on suffering in the world, the bondage of samsaric existence and the sufferings, innumerable forms of suffering, then the matter is different. You are just, drifting in the ocean of, in a samsaric ocean. You are drifting without aim and without meaning. It's an aimless drifting of existence. So, but anybody who wants to make the best use of life and get something out of life, life means something, and any person who is serious enough to make the best use of life would naturally like to follow a course of living that makes life meaningful and worthwhile, and an unfolding a kind of spiritual adventure. The ability not to kill but to save life, requires wisdom. It requires some measure of spiritual maturity and understanding. So a Buddhist is Buddhist by virtue of the fact that he has to or she has to follow the 5 principles, because he or she is committed totally to the attainment of enlightenment, freedom from suffering of worldly existence in any form. So an Arahat, for instance, is incapable of violating the 10 precepts, which is the model for an under-training monk. Anybody who wants to live a monastic life, he or she has to follow the 10 silas. And they are pretty tough, and they require a lot of discipline indeed. So now the model life provided by an Arahat to the world is of very, very great importance indeed. So in this sutta, these 3 topics the Buddha has touched upon, they are very, very important indeed for any serious spiritual seeker. One, to repeat again, one is the process of spiritual purification and progress. The way we spiritually progress, step by step, in a process of inner purification. And then the goal of this purification is the path which leads to a goal. The goal is enlightenment, the state of the Arahat, and how you see, the two aspects of this enlightenment or Nibbana, spiritual liberation. One aspect is while the Arhat is living as an ordinary person like any one of us, yet is totally free. Totally free from any kind of clinging, any kind of attachment, free from any kind of greed or hatred or delusion, freed from committing any karma which will invariably involve you to be reborn again. He doesn't commit any karma at all. All the actions that he performs, which similar, for instance, he has to take food, he has to walk about, he has to talk, he has to give discourse, he interacts with the people all the time. His life is a very, very energetic life. Yet, totally free, totally uninvolved. So that pattern of Nibbana, where one is here in the world, yet out of the world, yet beyond the world. That is one state. And the other is when such a saint, enlightened saint, passes away. What happens? Whether he takes anything with him when he goes, or what does he carry with him, and so on. Is there any remnant of karma that is left that he carries, and so on? So that is the other aspect. So these two aspects of Nibbana, together with the 7 stages of spiritual purification, and the third point, how as well, you see, enlightened person lives an exemplary life to be of use to the world, to live in such a way a model life that others will benefit from. So he is not just having achieved liberation, he runs away from the world, he doesn't care anything about the world. No. He is an immensely caring person who lives for the good of the world. So these are the 3 topics of this particular sutta. I will today dilate on, you see, this broadly, the outline of it. Now this sutta was delivered by the Buddha in Rajagaha, when he was staying at Rajagaha, in the monastery called Veluvana, which happened to be you see, it was a kind of sanctuary for the Kalandaka, the squirrel. The people of Rajagaha, it was a little away from the city, not very far, not very close, free from all the noise of the city and all these other things of a city life. So King Bimbisara wanted to give Buddha, you see, offer Buddha a monastery where he could live a life of perfect peace and seclusion, away from the noise and din of worldly, you see, of city life. Yet be available to the people for spiritual guidance, and particularly for the, you see, for the king himself, he needed a lot of guidance. So, he was staying there in the Kalandaka Nivaka, in the squirrel, you see, sanctuary, and in the bamboo grove. And now, from his native place, that is Kapilavattu, a big group of bhikkhus, monks, arrived in, you see, in Veluvana monastery. So the Buddha asked them about their well-being and their happiness, how they have fared from Kapilavattu to Rajagaha on the way, and asked about their, you see, the way they live, the way they have progressed, so many things. After asking their well-being and so on. Then the Buddha said, well, monks, tell me who is that particular person, a particular monk, who is the most esteemed and the most respected and revered person because he has all the qualities of an enlightened person. Because he not only embodies the enlightened one and enlightened person's model life. He not only lives the life of an enlightened person, but he also teaches others constantly and shares his experience, his spiritual experience, his knowledge, and helps the world all the time. In other words, who is that very enlightened person, an arahat, who has, gained the respect and esteem of people of Kapilavattu throughout. Now the monk said, well, sir, the only person we can think of is Punna Mantani Putta. Punna means Purna, that one who is fully liberated. Purna, one is fulfilled spiritually, totally. And the son of Mantani. Just like Venerable Sariputta was the chief disciple of the Buddha, was known as Sariputta, the son of Sari, the lady Sari. Here this lady Mantani. Mantani means a great counselor. And he came from a community of, these Pandits, Brahmin Pandits, who specialized in, astrology and other arts of that kind. He was the disciple of Venerable Kondanya, the first person who became Sotapanna after hearing the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, and then he became the first Arhat. So his disciple, he hailed actually from the Sakyan country. He was the person who predicted that the Buddha will become not a Chakravarti Maharaja but a Buddha. After the king invited these great astrologers to predict what he will be. So he was the one who disagreed with all the other aged, experts who said, no, either he will become a Chakravarti Maharaja or he will become a Buddha. If he lives a household life, he will be a Chakravarti Maharaja, or if he chooses to lead the homeless life, he will become a Buddha. This young man, Kondanya, the youngest of them, of the 8 Brahmins, the Pandits who predicted, he said, no, he will become a Buddha. And these are the signs that shows that he will become a Buddha, and so on. So after he became an Arhat and he settled down there in Kapilavattu, he had built a very wonderful monastery himself. He lived a life of complete seclusion and so on. Later he retired in the Manas Sarovar. That is the mythical area just below Kailash. And he spent his whole life there only. So the Venerable Mantani Putta was the disciple of Venerable Kondanya. And why was he esteemed and respected so much as the greatest enlightened saint living in that area? The Buddha spelled out. Well, a person who is esteemed for his spiritual perfection and life, because number one, he embodies all the qualities of an Arahat in this way. For instance, an Arahat is characterized by apicha, alpa icha. He has practically no desire, no wish of any kinds at all, except probably when he has to take nourishment or he has to answer call of nature and things like that. Otherwise, he is absolutely, totally free from wanting this, wanting that, wishing this, wishing that. No. Totally free. And now imagine if you can compare yourself as a seeker of spiritual seeker, compare how much time and energy is lost and how many times in a day you have been wishing all kinds of things. And whether all the things that you wish are actually required. Or do they mean not merely, needed, but just to satisfy greed? A wish either, a wish comes to fulfill a need or to fulfill a greed. So if you ask yourself and observe yourself very carefully, you develop your mindfulness to an extent that from morning till night all that you do is just count how many times you have been wishing for something or other. And then next you ask yourself, well, whether what you have wished is really required, is a necessity of life, or whether you did it for greed, or because just you are used to it as a kind of mechanical practice you do it. You see. So now this kind of observation of life itself, based upon observing the nature of an arahat, of an enlightened person. Now if a person is serious and say, my goodness, he has absolutely no wish. He is a man of very, very few wish, alpicha. That also is those which are absolutely required, the bare necessities of life. So if you can model your life by saying, now let me cut down as many wish as I can. Let me become more and more satisfied. So the second quality of an arahat is that he is ever content. He is ever santosam, santutti paramang dhanam. Lord Buddha said that of all the dhana, all the wealth that you can wish in this world, all the wealth that you wish to possess in this world, of all that, the best, the most excellent dhana or wealth is contentment. Santutti paramang dhanam. And why he said this? Because this is exactly what an arahat is characterized. He is ever contented. Now, it is quite well known among monks who live on, alms food, or in a city. Those days, monks never, sometimes they will get very, very good food in their alms food, alms round, sometimes no. Even today the monks, they know many, and that sometimes you just get a handful of this kalepuri, some kind of puffed rice and all that, and no more. But that's enough. The monk, the person is quite satisfied, is totally satisfied with whatever he gets. He doesn't seek, he doesn't claim, he doesn't order, none of that. Now a life, a person who lives that kind of life, and you compare yourself with how much of discontent you have, How many times you complain that you don't have this, you don't have that, or you have this trouble, that trouble, and so on. So if you observe these things, the qualities of an arahat, and then compare it with your own, you will be surprised that it will be a wonderful adventure in spiritual life. You will try to emulate the life of the arahat. Say, all right, let me cut down my wish. All right, let me develop contentment. Santushti. If in the food there is no salt, you get angry. Or if there is more salt, you get angry. Or a particular type of food that you don't like, if that is given to you and you get angry. And you call yourself, well, my goodness, if this is what it is time I develop santushti, contentment. So an arahat's life is an open book. You can read through it and you get inspiration from everything from his life. And you are enabled, you are helped in a manner that nothing else can help. Because here is a real example. And you can see, well, he is also a person like me. He is also a human being. He has achieved this. Why can't I achieve? Now this kind of inspiration, this kind of thing, the arahat always creates in people. Then, for instance, he is characterized by seclusion. He loves to remain in seclusion. Ekanta vasa. Not in a company, not in the society where you have to talk a lot and do this and all kinds of involvements. No. He is totally non-involved. By that, does it mean that he is a selfish person? No. Just the opposite. And he loves to be in seclusion because he is a totally liberated person. He has nothing, he seeks nothing, and he enjoys nothing. He has no need for anything. That is why he is contented to be in seclusion. And not a lover of noise and din and talks and this and that. No. No involvement. And live alone, aloof, because his mind has become totally freed and liberated. There is nothing that he clings to, he seeks or desires. And the enjoyment he gets fully is from this love of seclusion and to be alone and to be in peace. He is an embodiment of peace and contentment. Now, by that, does it mean he is something like a vegetable? Just sticking somewhere, sitting, doing nothing, nobody is benefited, nothing, no. Just the opposite. He is an exceedingly energetic person. Very, very energetic. Every second of his life is utilized for the good of the world. In a monastery, a liberated person, for instance, is constantly engaged in encouraging the other monks, the other devotees, whoever come. Constantly encouraging them to lead a life where they will benefit from. Constantly giving guidance. He is available for giving guidance all the time. He doesn't run away from the world. Now, so this energetic person, and the other thing that you can notice in him is the absolutely perfectly virtuous life. His life is a model of, virtuous conduct, virtuous living. Shila. He will not break any Shila of any kind, however unimportant and ordinary it may be. No. No violation of any precept whatsoever. And he is a meditator, all the time immersed in meditation. And a very, very wise person, practical wisdom all the time. So here, this is the model that, so Buddha asked all these questions to these to these monks. He said, has he got all these qualities, and does he also preach to other people, encourage other people to have these, to develop these qualities? He said, yes, that is exactly so, Venerable Sir. The Venerable Punya Mantani Putta is an embodiment of all these qualities. And so the whole city, and not even the city of Kapilavatthu, but the whole of country of Sakyas, they go to him all the time for blessings, all the time for guidance, and is ever, available to everyone. Now the Venerable Sariputta was also sitting there. He heard this. He says, my goodness, what a wonderful thing indeed. Oh, it's a great pleasure, it's a good luck to hear such a thing. The good qualities of others. Now, normally people, when they hear about others' good qualities, they get jealous. Here is another arahat of this absolutely highest type, Sariputta Bhante. He said, oh, how wonderful indeed. If only I could have a darshan of a look and have a little Dhamma talk with him. Now these are the qualities of the arahats, of an enlightened person. They are not runaways from the world, no. The Buddha, 45 years he spent teaching. From morning till night, he slept just 2 hours. His life was an open book of giving, giving, giving. Such a wonderful, compassionate one. That's how the world remembers Buddha. If he had been a king, there had been a million, billion kings, trillions of kings which have, from the time of the Buddha up to our time, all over the world. Nobody cares for them, nobody even knows about them. So today I will leave it at this. We will go now in detail about this sutta and the implications of these little topics that I have already told you in the form of an introduction. With this I conclude. May the blessings of Bhagavan Buddha, his Dhamma and Sangha surround your life with wisdom and well-being. May you all be happy.